We've never experienced anything like that, huh? So, good morning. Glad you're all here with us. A reminder I'm going to keep reminding you of is we have 2 more Sundays of this schedule, 8:15, 9:15, 10:15, beginning on January 4th and into the future. We have 2 services at 8:45 and 10. Mark your calendars, put neon lights out, whatever you need to do to remind you. We'll try to do everything in our power to help you not show up too early or too late. So the 8:15 folks get to sleep an extra half hour. 9:15 folks, if you're going to come to 8:45, sorry. So a little shorter on sleep. Anyway, on November 1st, which I know was a Saturday, we picked up our granddaughter for breakfast because the family was going to be out of town the rest of the weekend. And we had a couple of errands to run after we had breakfast. And one of them took us to a store where I noticed there was an Advent calendar there. And I think you know what an Advent calendar is. Advent is the churchy word that talks about the time that's leading up to Christmas, and is particularly observed on the 4 Sundays prior to Christmas. We're in the Advent season right now. And a calendar, of course you know what a calendar is, but an Advent calendar is primarily designed for children and to help them mark off the days till Christmas. Well, as I said, this was on November 1st. Advent didn't officially begin in the church until November 30th, but on this calendar, it didn't begin until December 1st. But I pointed it out to our granddaughter and said, would you like to have one? Well, of course she wanted to have one because she knew there was a chocolate behind each window. And so I got it for her, and I knew I shouldn't have done that when she was with us, because the second we got in the car, may I open it now? I want to open it now. No, you can't open it now because it's not Christmas. You've got to wait another month before we can even start counting down to Christmas. And we got home, she wanted to open it, so she took the wrapping off it at least. But she didn't open any of the doors, and we found all the numbers and counted all that. But she couldn't understand why she had to wait, that it wasn't time, and we hadn't even begun Advent. Well, I'm happy to say I hid it so that she couldn't find it at all. And when it was time, I got it out again. And she has, at least she's reported to me, that she's opening just 1 door a day and marking off the days and having just 1 piece of chocolate a day to mark off the days until Christmas. But it's hard for kids to wait, isn't it? And yet, you know, they aren't the only ones who have to wait in life. They maybe seems eternally long for a child, but for us, there's plenty of times of waiting too. We wait for the light to change. We wait in line at the grocery or anywhere else. We wait on the phone while someone plays music we didn't choose, while we're on hold somewhere. And there are other big events that we wait for, that we anticipate greatly, you know, an upcoming trip, or for the baby to be born, or for the first day on a new job, or for Apple to make its next release. We're always waiting in one way or another. Now, even Dr. Seuss got in the act here talking about how waiting is just plain a part of life. He wrote this: waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. Well, as some of you know, I was a French major undergraduate, and in a French lit class that I took early on in college, we were reading a play by Samuel Beckett in French entitled Waiting for Godot. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand what in the world this play was about, and that wasn't just because it was French. I read it later in English, and I still didn't get it. I still didn't understand what was happening. And the plot, if you want to call it a plot, pure and simple, was that there are 2 guys who are Estragon and Vladimir, who are standing alongside a country road day after day after day, waiting for someone that they call Godot to show up. They wait and wait and wait, and Godot never shows up. It finally occurs to them that Godot isn't really coming, but they continue to wait, again, one day after the next after the next. And I didn't understand. It seemed so purposeless, like there wasn't really any point in this story, until I read some of the critiques about it. And one critic at least said that this was a really symbolic of humanity that waits for someone, namely God, to come and bring some meaning to life, to the life that we're living. Well, that seems so hopeless to me, that this waiting was so futile. And even then, when I was in college, it just didn't fit right for me. It didn't seem right because, one, I don't believe life is meaningless. I didn't believe it then. I don't believe it now. Nor do I believe that God never shows up. I don't think that's true. I think God is always here and meets us wherever we are. So I just couldn't figure that out. For me, this play was just about the fact that in the course of life we wait. There are lots of things that we wait on. That's part and parcel of what it means to live our lives. Well, the Bible passage we have this morning, if we use our imaginations, at least implies the reality of waiting that's here. This is the story from Luke's Gospel after the angel Gabriel came to Mary to tell her she was going to bear a child. This is how it reads. But the angel assured her, Mary, you have nothing to fear. God has a surprise for you. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son and call his name Jesus. He will be great, be called Son of the Highest. Now, it's pretty clear that once a pregnancy is announced, there's going to be a time of waiting involved here. And it's an important time because obviously this 9 months that we wait during the pregnancy is critical time for the development of the child. A time that the child begins to form into a healthy baby to be born at full term when the time comes. And it's also important for the parents to be because they have a time of preparation as well, as they try to ready themselves to then nurture another human being from infancy into adulthood. And so there is this time of waiting, this time of preparation. Waiting is essential for some things to come to fruition. Nonetheless, most of us find waiting pretty frustrating. We don't like to wait very much. And it seems that waiting really is like downtime, like it's emptiness. It doesn't have any meaning or any worth at all. And we wait interminably. We find it frustrating partially because of the world in which we live. We live in a high-speed world, high-speed internet, fast food. We know what happens in other parts of the world the second it happens. And we don't like to wait. We want what we want when we want it, and we don't like to wait if we have to. Well, it seems to me that maybe we need to take a little different slant on this whole idea of waiting, because it's part of this Christmas season, this waiting for Christmas to come around. And rather than think of it as a passive kind of thing where we're just sitting there twiddling our thumbs or tapping our fingers on the desk or watching the hands on the clock tick by very slowly, I don't think that's the kind of waiting we're talking about. Maybe instead of passive waiting, we're really talking about more of an active waiting. That there is that sense of, well, it's not time yet and we're still waiting for the time to come. That we are, in a sense, preparing ourselves in one way, shape, or form. That we're trying to prepare ourselves for, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We're trying to prepare ourselves for this wondrous event that's going to happen, this thing that is good, that brings promise to us. We're really waiting with hope, with great anticipation, and with great hope. Well, waiting is essential not just at Christmas time, but in lots of other ways too. Sometimes as parents, we wind up having to wait a lot. And this is one of my many failures as a parent, I think, when it came to our daughter when she was small, because I wasn't very good at waiting on her. And I would be in a hurry to go somewhere, to get someplace quickly, and she, kids dawdle. Have you ever noticed that? They'll see an ant on the sidewalk and start, watching it, or she'd be tying her shoes, and it took forever for her to tie her shoes, and I would get impatient, and I wouldn't wait. I would go ahead and do it, or take her away, and I'm sorry about that now. I wish I hadn't done that, because what was happening was I was denying her the opportunity to explore her world and to learn more about herself and how she fit into this world around her. So that waiting is an important time. And it continues to be important in our lives in other ways as well. Sometimes we have to wait for something that we see in the future that we want to have happen in our lives. And it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And maybe in that waiting we'll realize that at the time that we thought we most wanted it, We weren't really ready for it. Maybe we didn't have the skills we needed. Maybe we weren't mature enough to handle it. Sometimes it seems like we wait interminably to have a decision rendered, to have something decided, and maybe it's important that we wait so that poor decisions aren't made, that much wisdom is gained in that. And there are certainly times that we have to wait to gain more information so that we can really understand more fully and as completely as we can before we can really make a choice and really decide what's moving forward. Well, if we think back to this Christmas story, there was something that happened in this time of waiting on which Mary was embarking. I'm sure during that waiting she did that classic thing that's called pondering. I really like that word because it's to reflect quite deeply about something. And I'm sure she pondered this strange visitation she had from an angel, and that she pondered about this whole pregnancy thing, this birth thing, and that she pondered about what this child was going to be as he grew. She thought about all of those things. Well, I would like to suggest, just as she was in that waiting time and pondering things, that maybe that's a part of why we wait, why we have this time that we mark till Christmas. Maybe it's a time for us to ponder what this season means to us. How does it really, what does it have to do with us? How does it touch us in one way or another? For that to happen, we need time, and we need time to reflect. We need time to be quiet. That means in the beginning of the day or the end of the day or in the middle of the day. We need to find some time to just pull back a little bit and to allow ourselves to reflect on what this season is truly about. It may mean that we want to focus on those people who are the most important to us in our lives, on our families and friends, more so than on preparing this elegant cuisine or setting the perfect table. It's a matter of focusing on the people who are nearest and dearest to us that really matters. And maybe it's a matter of waiting expectantly for God to surprise us, to bring some wonderful gift of unconditional love into our lives that we would never have been able to receive had we not allowed ourselves to wait and to be open to whatever comes our way. You know, the reality here is we've got about 10 days, 10, 11 days, depending on how you count, between now and Christmas. I guess the key question is, how are we going to allow God's Christmas love to break into our hearts and minds and spirits during this time of waiting?